It's Stephen Imbide on Fefesiwe Chibugam coming to you from Buganda Road here in Kampala next to the Central Police Station as well as the City Square. Today makes it exactly 90 days since Dr. Besigye was arrested and he's now still in detention at Luzira following his appearances in the court-martial. But today we expect Dr. Kizza Besigye to be brought again here at the Buganda Road Court. This is just because he has another case away from that case that was in the court-martial of alleged treachery, but also being in possession of firearms together with his aide, political aide, Haj Obeid Rutale Kamlegeya. This is another case, that is the incitement of violence case that stems from his arrest in May 2022. That was during the protest that was due to the rising cost of commodity prices. That was in Kampala. He was arrested that side of Shauria, connects also that's next to Arua Park there, when he had gone with another politician, Samuel Lubega Mukaku, to rally Ugandans to oppose and show protest over the rising cost of commodities. And that arrest has also stemmed. That arrest also led to the prosecution to charge him for cases of incitement of violence, and that case has been ongoing, dragging, but also was at one time he was given bail and he was allowed to assist answer to the charges were coming from his residence in Kasangati, just like the other side, Lubega Mukaku, who is also being charged alongside him in this same court of Buganda Road. But for Mukaku, it comes from home and joins Besigye, who is in detention from Luzira. Of course, we know that yesterday his lawyers, that is Elias Lukwago, Anes Kalibala, and Samuel Ruiz and others, as well as Medad Rubega Segona, we are in the High Court trying to see that Dr. Kizza Besigye gets temporary freedom, because they say they are not asking him to drop the charges, but they are saying that his health is deteriorating. He needs to get some specialized treatment from specialized hospitals, and they are saying that at least he should be given that temporary freedom. So today we expect to see the Uganda Prison Service delivering Dr. Kizza Besigye before this Buganda Road Court any time from now, because he has to appear again before senior principal grade 1 magistrate, that is Winnie Nancha, who has to rule on whether to extend his bail application. Of course, the lawyers are saying that yes, he's in detention, is in Luzira prison, and they are saying it's still illegal because the Supreme Court already ruled that his cases have to be transferred before the civil courts. But then he continues to be under detention at Luzira prison. So they are saying that this case, the one that is of incitement of violence, was already he had already given bail when he was rearrested from Kenya. That was on the 23rd of November, which is also making it 90 days today, that he was coming here at the Buganda Road Court, coming from out. But now, because they arrested him, his health is deteriorating, but also his bail application was affected by these ongoing cases that were brought against him. So they are saying that, hey, because of his health and his alleged human rights violations that are happening in Luzira, let him get some temporary freedom so that he can come to court coming from out after getting some temporary freedom. But of course we know that Dr. Besigye, when he appeared on 7th of this month, he failed to appear before this court. What he did was write to the magistrate Winnie Nancha that my health is not well, I'm indisposed, so I cannot be able to stand before you. And that was on 10th. He wrote on 7th, and the court was sitting on the 10th of February. So on 10th he wasn't able to appear before this court, but last Friday he was able to come, and then the judge was able to listen to the lawyers who are saying that, you know what, let the man get his temporary freedom. And the judge, the magistrate, that is senior magistrate Winnie Nancha, was able to say that, you know what, I'll give my ruling on the 20th of February on whether to extend his bail application. And that is what's going to be happening here. The lawyers will come from the Besigye side to hear whether the bail application will be heard, that is will be ruled. And that is what will be happening here. We expect that Dr. Besigye will be able to be brought here, and if he's brought indeed, or if not, then the ruling is expected to happen here. And whether he's released or not, that will also be still heard from the authorities that be. But of course, yesterday we had Habeas corpus, that is the production warrant for Dr. Besigye was read before the High Court, and then the judge, that is Kizza Douglas, say that I thought the Habeas corpus was to confirm whether the person is alive, whether the person is dead, and to know where his body is, if he's dead, or to know where he is. And when he was brought into court, of course, his frail condition made the judge, that is Douglas Kizza, to say that let Dr. Besigye be taken back to prison as the lawyers and the Attorney General continue with the case that was the Habeas corpus that was at the High Court. And again, the ruling was not delivered. So Douglas Kizza said that, you know what, I'll give my ruling at a later date. So still, Dr. Besigye and Obedi Lutali were taken back to Luzira prison, and we wait to see what exactly happens. But of course, we know that the state is still objecting to releasing Dr. Besigye on bail, and that's why they have made several attempts, including trying to amend the UPDF Act. And of course, tomorrow we know that President Yoweri Museveni, the chairman of the National Resistance Movement, has already summoned members of the NRM, that is the NRM caucus, to appear before him at State House in Entebbe, and they will be looking at, he will be trying to convince them that, you know what, there is need to hear cases related to civilians before the court martial, and that is they have to do that through amending the UPDF Act. And we wait to see what will be happening in Entebbe. And of course, this is also linked to Dr. Besigye, who is a civilian now after he retired from the army at the rank of colonel. This touches him because he's now a civilian, as well as Obedi Lutali, who have previously appeared before the court martial in Machindye. Now that there is plans to amend the UPDF Act, if it is really amended before the Parliament of Uganda, of course that will also imply that they will still be charged before the military court in Machindye, because now what government is trying to do is to ensure that yes, the civilians, whereas the Supreme Court ruled that it's illegal to try civilians before the military courts, the state is now trying to see that what they do is to make sure that they amend the UPDF Act to ensure that also civilians legally are able to appear before the court martial, especially if they have cases that are linked to military hardware, or they are linked to military cases, like for example treason, and of course being found in possession of military attire or military equipment. So now that Supreme Court ruled that it's illegal, that meant that they had to bring Dr. Besigye into the civilian course, which has not yet happened officially, because this is what happened yesterday was just a pre-trial, and they haven't been able to arraign Dr. Besigye as well as Obedi Lutali before the civilian courts as ruled by the Supreme Court. But for now, we know that lawyers for Dr. Kizza Besigye will be coming here, as well as the state, to hear the ruling from senior magistrate Winnie Nancha, who will be giving her ruling whether to extend the bail for Dr. Besigye. Of course, they are arguing that his health is deteriorating, and now we can see the courts here are still closed. We wait for 9 a.m. when Dr. Besigye is expected to be coming here for the ruling of his extension of the bail application. And of course, human rights defenders yesterday together with different leaders from the political parties like National Unity Platform, Alliance for National Transformation, ANT, as well as Uganda People's Congress and other human rights defenders and politicians gathered the headquarters of National Unity Platform at Makere Kavuli to pray for the release of Dr. Besigye and all others. They say that they are political prisoners, that they want them to be released, including the in charge of mobilization, that is at National Unity Platform, that is Fred Nyaz Sentam, as well as Eron Kizza, the lawyer, and others who are still under detention. But of course, for now, it's not yet clear where exactly Freddy Nyanzi Sentam is detained, although some accounts indicate that he's before the chief tenants of military intelligence at Mbuya. But we await to confirm that, because both the military and as well as the police have tried to play ping pong, and they're not coming out so clearly to inform the country where Freddy Nyanzi Sentam is. But at least for now, we know that prayers were held yesterday to ensure that yes, all those who have been detained and believed to be before the military courts or in jails be released, according to the political leaders who also had that special prayer meeting had also former Constitutional Affairs Minister of Kenya, now a senior lawyer, Martha Karua, who is also part of the defense of Dr. Kizza Besigye, was also there at Makere Kavuli, as well as other leaders. What I can tell you for now is that we are still waiting for Dr. Kizza Besigye, whether he's brought here or if he's not, we shall wait to see what happens. But what I can confirm to you is that today, the 20th of February, is the day for the ruling of the bail application, extension of the bail application that he made before this court, that is before senior principal grade 1 magistrate, that is Winnie Nancha, who has to give a ruling today, as she made promise that was last Friday. But for now, I can assure you that Uganda Prison Service has been saying that Dr. Kizza Besigye's life is not in danger, although they confirm that he's on a hunger strike. Of course, his hunger strike stems from his own will, that his human rights are being trampled upon. So he says that he's in detention under illegal terms, so he wants to be released and taken back to his residence in Kasangat, but also get specialized treatment. This is what is happening here. When Dr. Besigye is brought here, I will be letting you know, or if his lawyers come here, I will also be letting you know. For now, let me take you back to studio for the rest of the programming, and then we shall be back here with what will be happening here as Dr. Kizza Besigye is expected to be brought back here. This is what is happening here on Morning at NTV.
All right, thank you very much, Stephen Mbide, for those updates. Of course, like Stephen Mbide says there, we are expecting that decision of the court. Either it will grant bail or not to retired Colonel Dr. Kizza Besigye on cases of inciting violence, alongside one Mukaku, a politician within the opposition, who is alleged to have committed these particular offences with at downtown Kampala, one of the very iconic streets there. The context is that if the court grants bail to Kizza Besigye and Mr. Mukaku, then there is going to be a bit of a standoff again, because that will require that after the grant of bail, Kizza Besigye can walk free from Luzira prison on account of that case. But because we know there is already an ongoing case, that is one that originates from the now disbanded General Court Martial, it remains to be seen whether Besigye can walk free. That particular conversation will lead us into the Kickstarter this morning. But before we do, let's hear from our reporters on Kizza Besigye's appearance yesterday in the court. Again, this was on account of what had transpired in the last few days, the contestation over his health.
The hearing of the habeas corpus application filed by the lawyers of former presidential candidate
Dr. Kizza Besigye and Haji Obed Lutale was initially scheduled for Tuesday next week. However, the hearing date was moved up to today after Parliament took an interest in the matter due to the deteriorating health condition of Dr. Besigye, compelling the state to expedite the hearing process. The lawyers are specifically seeking the release of Dr. Kizza Besigye, Obed Lutale and other suspects who have appeared before military courts, arguing that the Supreme Court ruled that military courts lack the jurisdiction to try civilians. Besigye and Lutale were arrested in Nairobi, Kenya on November 16, 2024. They face charges related to national security, illegal possession of firearms and ammunition, and treachery before the General Court-Martial. The two were produced in court this morning, but presiding Judge Douglas Kizza ordered their return to prison due to Dr. Besigye's serious health condition. The lawyers protested the decision, but the court proceeded without Besigye and Lutale.
On whose orders and under whose authority are the applicants in detention? Number two, what is the criminal case number? The Supreme Court having said the prosecution ceases and with immediate effect by 31st. By fall of night 31st, the criminal case number for the General Court-Martial ceased. The Supreme Court did not say that those who are incarcerated should remain incarcerated, except for those who had been convicted.
Everything about that defunct General Court-Martial was nullified. We cannot continue discussing putting something on nothing, my lord.
The state attorney argued that the Attorney General had already initiated the process to transfer the files of civilians undergoing trials in military courts to civilian courts in line with the Supreme Court's ruling.
This application is misconceived because the applicants are aware that they are in detention legally and the state is not denying where they are. And at any time you want to look at him, you can even visit him, anyone can visit him. And if anyone can want him to be produced in court, can be produced in court. But ordering his release would be in contempt of the Supreme Court decision.
However, the state attorney acknowledged the substantial workload involved given the large number of files in military courts, which may delay the transfer of cases involving civilians from the General Court-Martial to civilian courts. When asked about the timeline for the transfer process, the state attorney did not provide an answer, stating that it would be premature to estimate the time frame due to the complexities of the process. The defense lawyers then asked the court to compel prison authorities to release Dr. Besigye on health grounds.
The circumstances compel that an order be issued for Dr. Besigye to regain his liberty, to be able to access a medical facility of his choice so that he can be thoroughly examined to assess his health situation and get proper or specialized treatment.
That request was ultimately denied. Judge Douglas Kizza adjourned the matter and indicated that he would issue its ruling at a later date. He also suggested the possibility of consolidating the cases of Dr. Kizza Besigye and Obed Lutale and that of Eron Kizza, who also appeared in court today. Kizza is seeking release after General Court-Martial Chairman Brigadier General Freeman Mugabe sentenced him to 9 months in prison last month for contempt of court.
We have been directed that tomorrow we write to the judge requesting for the date when the decision will be delivered. It's really baffling.
I'm devastated, but I'm not surprised. Besigye is a captive. He was kidnapped. This cadre judge, shame on him.
This is not prosecution, this is persecution. Dr. Besigye would not be brought to court today if it was not for pressure. You notice this is the same judge that sent Kakwenza to prison instead of sending him to the ICU after grave torture.
Daniel Kibet, NTV.
Thank you very much, Daniel Kibet, for the update there. Now, immediately after that session at court, prayers were conducted at the headquarters of the National Unity Platform that brought together opposition politicians, including the wife of retired Colonel Dr. Kizza Besigye, who gave a very impassioned speech in light of her husband's incarceration.
Following the court proceedings involving Dr. Kizza Besigye and Haj Obed Lutale at the High Court, the next event on the agenda for the opposition coalition was a prayer gathering at the National Unity Platform headquarters. This prayer was dedicated to Dr. Besigye and all political prisoners. However, even before the prayer session began, there was already a significant security presence. Both JAT forces and police had surrounded the NUP headquarters by 10 a.m. An aerial view captured by our cameras showed security personnel arresting 5 individuals at random. These detainees were briefly held in a minivan before being transferred to a mobile police cell. As tensions heightened, opposition political figures began arriving at the NUP's headquarters by 12:30 p.m. This was soon followed by the prayers led by Reverend Bobson Musamali, Dr. Besigye's spiritual formator.
Abali mmachi makomera twagala okwebaza omulamuzi omukulu bwe yavuddeyo n'alamula ensonga nga bwe ziteeka okukola ki okuba.
After the prayer session, several opposition representatives delivered speeches. They spoke with a unified voice calling for greater opposition unity. They denounced the ongoing divisions within the opposition and stressed the importance of solidarity to challenge the ruling NRM government.
It is important that all progressive forces stand together, united, to fight the oppression in our respective countries, and in order to dethrone oppressive regimes.
Truth be told, sometimes we spend a lot of time nibbling at each other, pointing the guns at each other, and yet we are not enemies of each other. We should not be. We know who our enemy is, and that's where our political guns should point.
For us to give people the understanding that change is possible, the physical, and 2, the country can remain intact, we must speak that. We must act that.
You have seen all over social media that some of them work for the regime, and others, we must understand, they are our comrades, but they don't get the depth of this. They fail to understand that the regime prefers us divided.
The opposition leaders also expressed frustration over the delayed release of Dr. Besigye and other political prisoners despite a recent ruling from the Supreme Court. They accused the judiciary of being compromised and accused it of working in favor of the government.
My husband has been in prison just 3 months. I am able, I'm a global leader. I can bring global attention to him, and I have. I have also national recognition, and I have. But these people, your people, who have disappeared, who are in prison, nobody knows them. And Museveni is sitting on them, denying their rights because nobody knows them.
I have noticed that people placed in authority, including the courts, are reluctant or fearful of doing their duty. They know what is right.
The leaders also voiced concerns about a new wave of abductions, pointing to the alleged abduction of NUP's head of mobilization, Chairman Nyanzi, members of the party's electoral management committee, and the arrests by security forces outside the NUP headquarters as examples of this alarming trend.
Right now, as you all know, Chairman Nyanzi has been missing for several days now. He was abducted by state operatives just right there in view of everybody. Yesterday, 4 members of our election management committee were abducted on Masaka Road.
Today's prayers have been dominated by calls for opposition unity from nearly all political actors that stood to the podium to speak. What is left to be seen is whether the practicability of these calls will be heeded too. David Ijo, NTV Tonight.
2021.
David Ijo reporting there on the headquarters of the National Unity Platform, where prayers were conducted for Kizza Besigye and all other political prisoners who are currently incarcerated. This rolling coverage of these events is on account of the fact that they are very controversial but need to be understood clearly. What we do have, or rather we are anticipating today, I had earlier said it was a case of a decision on bail. It is not. Technically, Kizza Besigye and Mr. Mkaku are on bail. That is why Mr. Mkaku does come from home to attend these court proceedings. The only thing that makes Besigye be in the fix is that he's already incarcerated on account of the General Court Martial, but technically he's out on bail. So what is going to be happening today is a decision on his release. We shall be getting clarification and context as well as pinpoint perspective on that when we begin the Kickstarter interview. But let's first listen to, again, another story on the establishment of the court martial. All right, we seem to be having a little bit of a hiccup there. That story or context that we needed will be available as we proceed. Let's go straight into our Kickstarter discussion, where we are looking at Kizza Besigye and Eron Kizza's case, implications of this to the country, but also to the justice system. We do know that retired Colonel Dr. Kizza Besigye is incarcerated on account of charges brought against him by the General Court Martial, while Kizza Eron is incarcerated on account of contempt of court. I'm joined on site by Harold Kaija, rather. My apologies for that. You are a political activist and member of the Forum for Democratic Change for PFF. Yeah, we still classify it as such because the modalities of PFF are still under contention, but you will do some clarification on exactly where we stand on that. But we're also joined by Mr. Ronald Samuel Wanda. Ronald Samuel Wanda, you were with us a while back, and at that time the General Court Martial was at the height of all the drama, and your submissions that they helped embolden our understanding of how the proceedings there were going on. It has since been disbanded by the Supreme Court. I'm sure that is something that you've had a good cup of coffee on. Let me begin with you on that.
Thank you so much, Genyi. Good morning to our viewers. We always say thanks to the Supreme Court for having given us a gift to liberty and to freedom for majority of the political prisoners who are being tried in the General Court Martial. We normally say that it was literally butchered or killed because the judgment declared the section in the UPDF Act which creates it, 197, to be unconstitutional, and therefore if the section which creates the particular institution is unconstitutional, then the institution is no longer there. And the Supreme Court went further ahead to guide on if they still want to have a General Court Martial or to have a military court within the establishment of the courts of judicature, is to amend the UPDF Act. We have yesterday saw a letter circulating from the government chief whip calling on MPs to State House so that they can debate the amendment of the UPDF Act. Because court said if you want, then you should have your judicial people handling the matters there should be qualified to at least be judges of the High Court, and also they should be appointed through the normal system of what judges are appointed through, like the Judicial Service Commission, and you can have a division of the High Court which is specifically for military trials. Then there you can have a semblance of having a judicial system within the military, and therefore people can be guaranteed to a right to a fair hearing, which is non-derogable in our constitution. So the Supreme Court decision was good. The challenges we are still finding today is on the implementation, There is a lot of ping pong here and there on what to do, what to happen next, but we are hopeful in the near future its full implementation will be in place.
Okay, thank you very much. Harold Kizza, within the workings of the opposition, the PF's emergence is one that, of course, brings a new player to the political scene in light of 2026. I'll be asking you questions on that particular issue and how the opposition will look for 2026. But let's first stick to the Supreme Court ruling and the General Court Martial controversy and the fact that Kizza Besigye continues to be incarcerated on terms that are, if I can state it the way it is, illegal.
Yeah, true.
What's your take on that?
When I was perusing through your paper, I saw a nice article by Kalinaki. It is until we've sort our politics, that is when then these guys will have some good job.
The lawyers.
The lawyers. But because you see a lot of politics in these matters and a few laws. The other day, Mr. Museveni posted on his on his account, explaining himself why Dr. Besigye should be in jail. Miguna, the Kenyan lawyer, and I want to thank him, came and replied to him, said, man, wait a minute. Let's start from where he was arrested, from his arrest. Dr. Besigye was arrested in Kenya. So the court martial and the civil courts do not have jurisdiction to try him.
That is right.
Then too, he said, you have no role whatsoever to talk about him getting bail or not getting bail. Those are matters of the court. But when you see his submission, he tells you, I am the Oga. Those who have watched the Nigerian film, it is the chief who makes all decisions. This is the Alpha, the Omega.
That's right.
We had, I think about last week, or a week after the Supreme Court judgment, when NRM caucus was invited at State House. You a journalist, you heard them what they said, not on the microphone, that we went there, we were not allowed to talk. We are only briefed or directed. Now they are being called back, not to discuss, but to be given different directives. Then what is the role of Parliament? And you see, for me, in the sense of what, for me, I'm a paralegal. These are lawyers, but we still learn from them, learn a few things. As a paralegal, my understanding of the Supreme Court judgment was, wait a minute, we have a full block, I would call it a block, what we would call one of the organs of the state. The judiciary, very independent. Why would you want to have another small court? A court who actually is like a walking stick of Mr. Museveni, because when their judges take oath, they take oath to protect and he's called the commander-in-chief. When he became a judge tomorrow, his oath would be, I'll protect the Constitution of Uganda. Then, if they are protecting Mr. Museveni, and you are taken to that court, and your case annoys Mr. Museveni, who wins? Because in their court, they tell us the Constitution must win. Whenever I listen to them, the Constitution must win. Now here, Mr. Museveni must win. So why would you want, and you see, there's something we're not bringing out from that judgment. It does not talk about civilians alone. No. Even the soldiers.
It maintains that.
It talks about whoever, if there is a matter that whose punishment is imprisonment, even for 2 days, that must go to the civil courts, where these guys must speak their law according to article this and this and this, say yes. And there is a competent man called a judge who has studied laws for 10 years, 20 years, practice laws and the like. That is where we must be. But you see, you create a man like a free man. You look at him very bored by the submissions of these guys. For me, I'm not even bored because I've been long with lawyers. So for me, and I'm interested. But you see, the guy is not writing, he's not doing, and then he waits. Who we are told now is an assessor. The assessor tells you I'm the boss. Honestly, why would you make the decision maker very green about what kind of work he's doing. And then you say your advisor will be the an expert on the job. Why don't you bring the other guy you call an expert to be the chairperson? So it was meant that put raw people in the job, whose self-esteem is low, so that you can even say, wait a minute, quiet. Because you see, I am an economist. Their issue will bring, I'll say, no, that can't work. When you bring, if you take me to issues of medicine and you put me at a hospital, even if I am managing a hospital, if doctors came and I'm the MD of Mulago, they tell you, you don't understand these things. I don't understand those things.
That's right.
So Mr. Museveni puts you in a position where you are green. That's why you find the Minister of Information is a medical doctor. But then you find he goes to health, one time puts there Jim Who is a lawyer. He will never put you in a position where you must, show your skills. So this is what we must fight. So that Supreme Court judgment was a landmark judgment. A one in a century, which will be quoted. Let me tell you, I have not heard of a country, I will ask him, where we have a court martial like that we have in this country. Not even in the US. Not even in the UK, not even Mobutu did not have it.
Let's get some clarity. I'm glad you've brought out the aspect of the court martial and the fact that maybe this kind of practice is not done anywhere else. Are you suggesting, for example, that the armed forces, the UK and the United States, do not bring their soldiers to book and condition sentences, including imprisonment, on them on account of indiscipline?
No, they have. Here we have a police standards unit. You know it. You've covered it. We have one for prisoners. I know NTV has one. But when there are issues, even for us we have it. Even in our families we have them. Disciplinary committees. It is that for discipline. But on matters of the law, they are taken to the civil court. That is why we have a judiciary. And in the constitution, who my brother, my lawyer protects, there's a person called the DPP who was given the sole role of making sure to look at what I have done to see the possibly there is a case. That's why when we are at police, they tell you, no, we are waiting for the DPP to sanction. In the military, who sanctions? There is a person called prosecutor, but it's not the person that sanctions. It is the DPP. The DPP has many prosecutors. So who decides which kind of case? Like we've been having matters. One thing. There is a man called Koyelo.
Koyelo, the former
LRA man. He's in the civilian court. There is a man called Jamiru Mukuru. He is in the civilian court. So
the court martial has never been interested in those cases.
They are not interested in those cases. Who we say they're on terrorism, they're on murder, it is treason, and all of those cases banded together. They are in the civilian courts. So this court, what they call the general court martial, was the late court martial was brought to persecute anybody who Mr. Museveni feels he's aggrieved with, and he feels if he takes you where he's not worshipped, possibly will not win. So he takes you there. It started with Dr. Besigye, and I'm glad he's closing it up. We will not see it, and the soldiers are very happy about it, because those who are not aggrieved are not having an issue with Mr. Museveni. Those who have issues with their colleagues, if I have a colleague with you and I'm a senior officer, they take you in there.
Let's go back a little bit and understand something that, and this is the beauty of discussion, is that when you gain new insight and information on something, then perspective changes completely. There are soldiers over the period that the General Court Martial operated before this ruling that were conditioned to years in prison within the confines of the army. Some of them were executed on account of the offenses they committed. What does the fate of those soldiers now paint to us, or is there a possibility of introspection?
One, I agree with you. So many people have fallen under the hands of the General Court Martial, and among the things we appreciate it for the Supreme Court judgment is that bringing soldiers to the ambit of the civilian courts. One day I attended one of the proceedings of the General Court Martial, and there was a soldier who was being tried. And in that trial, we were waiting for a matter to be called. And in that trial, there was presentation of a gun as an exhibit. And that gun had, its number was marked on using cell tape. So I'd put cell tape and I'd put a number on that gun. And the defense team from the UPDF
Wait a minute.
did not object.
A gun that is supposed to have
its
encryption
number
as a number.
Yes, the number was on the cell tape.
No, it's called masking tape.
Masking tape.
Masking tape.
Yes.
So they got a marker.
And the defense lawyer, who is part of the UPDF, did not object to it being admitted as an exhibit. And actually, I told colleagues I was with, let's wait for the Supreme Court judgment. In the event they don't cover the soldiers, then we need to challenge that aspect of even soldiers should not be tried in this court. Because I saw a travesty of justice. Someone who was going to be convicted over an exhibit which is being submitted in court, and in a normal court it would never be accepted.
All right, I'm afraid we're out of time for now. We're going to have to go for a break. When we return, this conversation will continue. But I also love to understand what powers the UPDF Act gives the military right now to decide the life and death of a soldier. I don't know whether the UPDF Act, and I must be able to read it after the show so that I can get abreast with some of the technicalities therein. It therefore means if the court martial's decision, if the Supreme Court's decision is anything to go by, the military cannot kill a soldier on account of punishment for an offense that he or she has committed. But we shall understand as and when that information comes through. Stay with us. We'll be right back. Welcome back. I'm glad you're still with us here on Morning at NTV. It's the Kickstarter discussion, and we are bringing you perspective as well as insight into the case of a retired Colonel Dr. Kizza Besigye, who is currently, of course, incarcerated in Luzira prisons on account of charges that were brought to him against him by the now defunct or disbanded General Court Martial. The ambiguity right now is, of course, something that is a play between the state and the judiciary, and how it plays out is, of course, something that we are focusing on and monitoring. We, as the media, can only amplify and bring these issues forward, and then hope resolutions can be reached as soon as possible, fundamentally for the observance of human rights, because that is key for each one of us. In the studio, I have Harold Kizza. Harold Kizza is an opposition politician and activist with the breakaway faction of the Forum for Democratic Change, the PPF, that has sought to become a political party, but there is still contestation with the Electoral Commission and all the other stakeholders. We may be ahead of 2026, things might clear up. He'll be telling us a little bit about that as when we close this particular show. But let's stay focused on the General Court Martial and what has been occasioned upon retired Colonel Dr. Kizza Besigye and Eron Kizza. The first one for acts or charges related to possession of a firearm outside of the territory of Uganda, and then the other contempt of court. There is a lot at play, gentlemen, but I would love to focus on the fact that the meeting that is going to be held tomorrow, the caucus meeting at Entebbe, is likely to alter the landscape for legislation in the country, because as we read whatever is happening, including the statements of the president, there is going to be fundamental change with regard to the UPDF's landscape after this. The MPs might be told to begin to push for new amendments. We already know there were some amendments that were brought forward by the Attorney General and tabled last year. These ones will also resurface. But in light of the president desiring to still retain the power to go for people he believes are either terrorists, are a threat to the country, he has given examples of how this particular formation was able to restore order and peace in Karamoja, the management of the Karachunas. He has talked about the fact that there are aspects that we have no idea as people or as civilians or the public that are taken care of by this arrangement. Some of them might be against the law, but as and when that information is available is when it can be acted on. Harold Kizza, what does the Supreme Court ruling offer the UPDF soldier who might have been undergoing a violation of their fundamental human rights under the operations of the General Court Martial?
No, when
maybe that is for Wanda. Please.
I could be a paralegal, but
okay, Wanda.
Yeah, so even when we went for the break, I was having a discussion on that.
That's right.
So to me, the Supreme Court judgments gives them relief.
The soldiers.
The soldiers. And you see, we are equal. Our Constitution is very clear under Article 21. We have a right against discrimination from each other in accordance with anything, and that includes occupation. So by being a soldier, I did not lose my rights to a right to a fair hearing, to a right to appearing before an impartial judicial officer. Now, to me, the judgment is very important that even the soldiers down there, a private will not be persecuted by a major, by a colonel, because they have their personal grievances. We've had this in the corridors, that if a superior has an issue with a junior officer, they will just come up with an offense, and then you're charged.
Life becomes hard for them.
Life becomes hard for you. Remember, we are only considering the General Court Martial.
That's right.
But they even have unit disciplinary courts at the different units. Now, if the head of that unit has an issue with you, and then they charge you, you're going to appear before people who are under him. And it resonates back to what we are fighting in the General Court Martial. The president, people report to him. Now the unit disciplinary unit, people are reporting to the head in that unit.
The chairman of that unit could be at a rank, for example, of captain.
Of captain, yes.
And this captain is under the
colonel or major.
The brigade commander,
yes,
who is a general.
Who is a general, major general, whatever. Yeah. So your right to a fair hearing and to appear before an impartial tribunal or impartial judicial officer is washed away. Now, when the Supreme Court says that even soldiers who have committed an offense, remember now the problem we've been having is that the UPDF created parallel offenses, which are also in other laws like the Penal Code Act.
That's right.
Now you're alleged to have committed murder, and you're being taken to the General Court Martial to be tried of murder. Now the Supreme Court said, even in that instance, let the soldier be tried in the normal courts. If the courts find him guilty and convict him, then you as the UPDF, you can now do your disciplinary issues. Because if someone is convicted, among the disciplinary issues can be dismissal from the UPDF.
From the army.
Or reducing of ranks.
Or reducing your ranks after you've been convicted by an impartial court. Then the UPDF can now conduct its disciplinary
always
issues.
The word, so the competent court.
Yes. So what happened with that judgment is that the Supreme Court was put at a level of a disciplinary unit of any institution, as is indicated, whether it's the PSU of the police, prisons, you've committed what we call a service offense, an offense in your service, which is a disciplinary issue and not a crime. Then you're brought under that to administer disciplinary related issues. Disciplinary issues that do not include imprisonment.
Let me ask a question, and like I said earlier, this is a talk show and we talk.
Yes.
And many times as we talk, information comes up and perspective is offered. If a UPDF officer within service molests an officer, for example, let's be very specific, a male officer is accused of sexually assaulting a female officer within the force. And there is another scenario where a soldier is accused of sexually harassing a civilian Are those two different cases? Does one require the disciplinary proceedings of the military and the other the proceedings of a civil court?
They are the same court, they are the same offenses, and they all should be in the civilian courts as per the Supreme Court decision. So what happens is after the court has decided, has made a judgment, and you're found guilty, then now it will come back to the army to discipline you. So the court will convict you, sentence you.
Yes.
And then the army now has a right to dismiss you. In light of the fact that you have done this, we believe it's an embarrassment to the institution. We cannot continue with you even after you've served your sentence.
That is right.
Yes. So that's what now the court has set a standard. So the only offenses you can appear in the general court martial or the disciplinary court is offenses related to your discipline. Your uniform is dirty, you've removed your pips, you've come to work late, you've come when you're drunk. Those are of such kind of offenses that can be tried within that court. But anything that is provided for under any law, like the Penal Code Act, the Anti-Terrorism Act, the Firearms Act, all those ones should come to the normal courts until the UPDF has established itself and has come under the ambits of the courts of judicature, under the ambits of the judiciary, where even when you have a resident judge or the head of the general court martial, now if in the event as they are planning to amend, probably they may call it the the army division or military division of the high court. The judge in that court is supervised by the principal judge and falls under the direct leadership of the chief justice. Now, that's what we call separation of powers. We can't have separation of powers where we have the chairperson of the court and they report to the commander-in-chief of the UPDF. No, that's what we are trying to say. This cannot happen. Among the issues we had with the same court was the convening authority. Even in their regulations, the UPDF regulations, they say if the court is not certain on any matter, they will take a break and consult the convening authority. Now, who is the convening authority? It's headed by the commander-in-chief, and it has the CDF and other senior military officers. So a court which can take a break to consult, that's not a court.
No, ours does. The civilian court takes a break to consult the constitution.
To consult and come back with a ruling.
In other words, you know what they're consulting about.
Yes. Actually, they don't take a break to consult the constitution. They will take a break to come back with a decision. Because you've submitted, then they say, okay, we take a 15-minute break to come back with.
No, if we were to use their language, you guys consult the constitution. For them, they take a break to consult an individual.
It's absurd. Yes.
Harold, do you see the inability of the courts now that have the hard task of taking on Kizza Besigye's case from the General Court Martial, the now disbanded General Court Martial, having a little bit of difficulty and maybe waiting for aspects including a decision from the caucus on how to move?
I don't think there is any kind of difficulty. As I told you, I've not yet read the article, but I have read it saying, until we sort the politics, it is the politics. Mr. Museveni trying to arm twist everybody, the Attorney General, Parliament, and the rest. As he said, and all scholars have explained to us, when you read the Supreme Court judgment, it's self-explanatory. Tells you if somebody is in jail, send him home. If you still think he has a case to answer, take it to the DPP. He tries through and tries to see if there are ingredients. If you find somebody worthy, go into court, they go to court. If they need to go home, they go home. Those are things that must have been done yesterday. But because you see somebody feels he still wants to be at the same level of the Constitution, Mr. Museveni, which is very wrong. Mr. Museveni has created this country to be like his fitting. When he gets some weight, they try to release a little. When he slims, they tighten. They tighten.
Liposuction.
Yes, but that must not be a country. he's actually creating a country that is going to collapse with him. And Ugandans and colleagues who are in NRM, you must not allow this country to collapse with Mr. Museveni. When you look at how things are done, I'm seeing Uganda going to Somalia, going to Syria, going to Libya, going to Congo. What you are seeing happening in Congo is what Mobutu Sese Seko did, trying to create a country that only helps him to keep around. He wants to create a monarchy so that his brother, his son, his in-laws, because now if you see in the NRM, nobody talks about who should be the next president. It is the confines of a family. Are the guys competing, one abusing the other, and the rest? So they feel, for us, we are slaves. The captives must break these chains, and we have a free country that works for all of us. For me, I want laws whereby, if I have a case to answer, I'm not scared of anybody. I go before a court. I ask Council Wanda, come and represent me. When we win, we win. When we lose, he even tells me we've lost because of this.
Okay, thank you very much, gentlemen. I'm afraid we have to go to the court where Kizza Besigye is expected to appear for that particular hearing. I know the conversation cannot be, of course, exhausted here on Morning on 10 TV, but I'm emboldened by your perspectives on this. Let me go to